Hey lovers, tell your friend to tell another friend to join me live. All right. So let me go ahead and let some people know. Join the conversation. Feel free. Click the link below. I'm live on YouTube. All right. So as we get this going, all right. So I'm going to allow that to invite some people out. Okay. And what's another thing that I can do? Hold on. Here we go. Here we go. I can. All right. So we'll see about that in just a moment. All right. So thank you. Thank you so much for joining me here on YouTube. I appreciate that. The conversation at this moment is yelling is toxic. And even more so, constant yelling is toxic. Okay. A lot of people don't realize that, and a lot of people will engage in yelling to be heard, right? So let's just take a popular social app right now. We'll just say CH for sake of respect that I'm on another app right now, right? So we want, crowd conversation about one app on this app, okay? So, um, when they're having relationship conversations, right? I am seeing that people will tend to yell when they do not agree with something. Okay? The reason why I have a problem with that is that you're trying to be heard, right? Let me get that turned down. I'm sorry about that. You're trying to be heard. You want your point of view to go over whatever it is that the other person is saying. The other person may be remaining calm, but you're in total disagreement with what that other person has to say. So, because you are in disagreement with what the other person has to say, then you move to the option of yelling. Because if you bring in yelling, oftentimes it creates discomfort, right? Hold on. So it creates a discomfort. If any of you agree with me and you want to join the topic, I want you to go in the comments and I will be looking for responses there. Um, and um, and I'm going to be sharing on social media on different apps, okay? That way I can keep the conversation going. Okay? Thank you for the people that are joining. I appreciate you. You are appreciated. Feel free to comment. So once the person and the other person is not yelling, that makes the situation even more toxic. Because as much as you desire to be heard, you still need to keep the tone of the room. Read the room, right? At all times, whether it's just you and another person sitting in a small confined space, or if it is you and a crowd of other people. You need to read the room. If the crowd, well, even if the crowd is yelling, it's toxic as hell, and you don't need to be getting yelling with them. But if the crowd is low in tone and they're not yelling, not projecting, there's a difference between projecting and yelling in my book, okay? So we're gonna call those diva-isms, okay? So for you to project, because people say sometimes, D, when you're on your Bluetooth and you're on the microphone, I have to turn my volume down. I project, boo, especially if I'm passionate. But yelling in an angry tone, aggressively in manner to get your point of view heard is toxic as hate. Okay? And it's like that. It's really very little room for argument. Okay? What's a good example? Miss D Shields, what's a good example? An example I say is this, like if you're talking in a relationship, let's do that before we have a conversation about interacting with the police, okay? So if you're talking in a relationship and you're having a conversation and you're stating your point of view. Now, let's just give my you know situation, right? I tend to have what people call a sarcastic tone. Often I lose my listeners with that, and if they don't know me, right? For people that have been around me a long time may realize that sarcasm may come when some sort of irritation is happening, and I am definitely not going to attack you with name calling. I'm not going to attack you with yelling. I'm not about to come in at you and slap you across your face. Oh, that's not gonna happen. What the number one thing that usually happens is that sarcasm. Just she just show up. I don't even know that girl like that. She just show up, right? So sarcasm tends to make people want to respond to me with yelling. What's not gonna happen is my tone is not going to be disrespectful. So I always want the people around me and in my relationship meet me at respect, right? I get that the sarcasm shows up. She's like that other, what was that Tyler Perry play where he said, I got like 25 personalities? She got her own world, right? My nickname is Diva for those who are new to me. That's pretty much how the Miss Diva nickname came about, right? So sometimes Miss Diva is going to show up, right? And people that love me, because I meet people where they are, the people that love me meet me where I am. They know if Miss Diva had to show up, then something about this conversation, granted her presence, right? So, if you love me, to know me is to love me, right? But you don't respond to sarcasm with yelling if the other person isn't yelling. Ego will make a person respond with yelling. Yelling is toxic for that reason. I want you to hear me, and I am the one speaking right now, and I'm about to let you know that you disrespected me, and I don't appreciate that. And just going into this whole eternal toxic delivery, it's not, it should not be in the same room with someone who's not giving you that. It's almost the epitome of yelling at a steel wall. It's almost like taking, when you stub your toe on something, right? And all of a sudden, it hurt. Like we all know, right? So thank you so much for watching those who are. So when you stub your toe, you're mad, right? Live now, chat on YouTube. Okay, I'm sorry, let's stop for a moment. Let's take a little break because it's not fair to me when I have to go over to Twitter and things like that. All right, so you stub your toe and you're mad. And then, okay, say you stubbed it on a big old steel brick wall. And then you turn around, you just start yelling at that wall, like giving it all you got. It may make you feel good because your ego needed to be fed at that moment. It hurt. People may have saw you. You're embarrassed. It hurt. And you're embarrassed, right? Right. So you're going to just start yelling at the wall. But listen to me. It's toxic. The wall can't yell back. The wall can't defend itself. The wall doesn't want to bring that type of negative energy. You understand where I'm coming from? Even if the wall could defend itself, 'cause it's a bad A because it did beat your toe up, it's not productive. So the wall just stays still, has nothing to input, and you're just yelling. It's toxic, Bill. You're yelling because your ego needs to be fed, right? And because you need to feed your ego, you could definitely say to the person before you decide to yell and feed ego, you could say to the person, I don't like that you said this. I also do not like the tone of voice that you use. I don't like the sarcasm that came with it. And because I don't appreciate that, that is the reason why I XYZ feel this X, feel that Z, feel this Y, feel that. You get it? Right? And say it in the same delivery, right? Oftentimes, sarcasm matches sarcasm. Okay. Well, the person that dished out the sarcasm needs to be ready for the sarcasm in response. I have mad respect for sarcasm, right? I know that I do it, and oftentimes, if I do it when I get riled up about something, if I do it, then I can expect that people are going to come in response with it, and it's a healthy debate at that point. So I have no, qualms about it because I know if I started it and I brought it, then it's definitely going to happen. But what I cannot accept as okay behavior is to yell every time you need to be heard, right? So if I'm doing and saying some things that you do not appreciate, then you can just, communicate and say, "Hey, can we sit down for a moment? Because I really need to have a conversation with you in regards to the way that you said this and that. I didn't appreciate when you said that." And you're meeting me at the tone that I'm at, right? I have this thing that I used to say to the children and to my grandchildren, say it, to my relationships. I'm always telling people around me or coworkers or whatever, tone. And people will look up like, "What, hey, D, what did you just say?" Tone, right? First of all, to request tone changes the room. No, the room gonna change because people are then like, what the heck did she just say to me? The reason why I say tone is because for those that know me, or especially for my children that I raise them, right? I raised them, they're adults now, but grandchildren trying to implement ways of respect. So when I say that to you, I'm telling you that the way that you're delivering this to me, I'm not going to receive anything that you need me to hear because your tone of voice is out of line. And when your tone of voice is out of line, I can't receive it. But instead of me having that long conversation and breaking that down to you, I'm just going to say tone. Okay? That's our code word. Love language. There we go. That's it. That's a deepism love language. Feel free to use it. Tone, right? I hear you. I don't need for you to bust my eardrums to get your point made. And I don't need for you to make a scene and entertain others that could possibly hear it to get your point made. I need to bring that. So read the room. Sometimes we do have to yell. That's a part of life sometimes, right? In life, at some point, driving down the street, somebody cuts you off, almost creates an accident. You have kids in the car, elderly in the car. It throws you off. You may yell, right? Warranted. You're yelling at the window. Granted, it's the brick wall syndrome. They can't hear you. But you needed to get that, that moment happens and you get it out your system, right? As long as you're wise enough not to get out the car and be aggressive and commit crimes, which is aggressiveness in traffic, and however the exact terminologies are, people can go to jail for that. So you do need to, keep on yelling at the window. Don't get out the car and try to interact or throw your fingers and do all kind of things that warrant reactions because you need to be prepared for what comes with that when you do, right? So, I'm putting on makeup if anyone is wondering about the noise in the background. So, in my opinion, yelling in response to things that you disagree with is toxic. So, I would like for you guys to tell me if you agree with me or not. Let's check the room so I don't see any requests to come on camera. If you follow me over on Facebook, that's pretty much how you'll get the request to come on camera when I'm on YouTube, um, or Facebook, because I need to to get on my Facebook, as many will tell you, I think there's like under 750 people on my Facebook. So to get on my Facebook is indeed a privilege indeed. That means that I have somehow interacted with you in some type of way to know you enough to know that you're going to respect the format of the show, et cetera, et cetera. And then you'll get those kind of invites, or if you happen to be invited as a guest on the show, then so. But if not, just type where you see the live, or if you are at the replay, feel free to type your comments because I will come back and check the replay constantly. And I try to make these topics not too long. Um, I don't want to um, spend a lot of time on them so that it's not me feeding too much of my thoughts on certain things. I'm going to go over and have the same conversation on the other app. Two apps that I have to have today's conversation on. So I don't want to take a lot of time, different crowds. One app, you have the whole UK, this overseas kind of audience. And another app, I have like an Asian, very heavy Asian presence and supportive audience. So it's different everywhere. Here on YouTube, I tend to look at the demographics, and it says that my viewers tend to be more United States, which explains the lack of interaction that happens when I'm in my home country. When I go to the other countries, they're very supportive and they interact with the conversation more. Um, um, Sorry about that. Had an app popping up a request, and so um, yelling is toxic. I want to know your point of view on it now. Do you agree with some of the points that I made? Apologize for the interruptions. When I come on to do this on video, then we'll have a lot more fun when I go live on the video with it, okay? So, do you agree with me? Yelling in response is toxic. If the other person in the room, I don't even like to go with if the other person in the room doesn't do. I don't like doing that because then that leaves this little bit of room and excuses for people to try to justify why they're yelling. So I don't want to say, well, if the other person in the room is not yelling, no, I just want to tell you that you need to learn how to not respond from ego. Do not respond from emotion to be heard, right? So that person says something that you disagree with, a healthy dialogue, when one, you may not have been raised and taught that way, but a healthy dialogue, of course, talking over each other, that, it is, some people do it, some people don't. My family, we tend to talk over each other and we all end up somehow getting heard and all of our points of view are made. And none of us get offended about the talking over each other, right? So that's kind of the environment that we've had for a long time. Principals, teachers, counselors, relationship coaches, working in customer service, admins, and we all like that's not something. The men usually just go in another room. Like I don't know how they do it, but somehow they get hurt. And we talk with passion, and so most people that are around my family know there is tends to be projection of voice going or we'll talk over each other, but yelling, cursing, and name calling in response to something you disagree with has been something that none of the elders ever um, allowed, so to speak. And so we learn how to be healthy debaters, right? But you do, as you get older in life, you do want to be careful to allow the tone delivery in a conversation to be very mindful of it because words are offensive, responses are offensive, the way that people communicate, if it's in a negative nature, can really harm people. Um, so trying to learn how to deliver a better way, I could be especially if you've been in different relationships. I could be with one person one way, and that was never a problem. You get in a new relationship and you start seeing that the way that you've been for years with someone else, is not a flow that this person can take. And you have to be willing to do the work if the relationship means anything to you. And it is a lot of work sometimes, especially when you have to completely change who you are as far as how your conversation way of debating the topics without any hatred or anger, saying different things in constant debate and rebuttals going on, and the person receives the rebuttal as aggressive or you don't value me. So when you get to that point where a person that you're dealing with seems to feel that you don't value them because you rebuttal, you almost have to learn how you definitely will have to start learning how to do things another way if you value the relationship and want to try to see it grow. So sometimes change is inevitable, depending on where you want to go with the relationship. And that's a whole new conversation. So I need to go over to holler at my Clubhouse Bigo people. YouTube, I appreciate you guys. I'll try to do a quick TikTok on this one. I'll try to be creative. I'll tap into my creativity so I can do something, so I can find a, you know what? I'll take something I said. I'll take a quote from the conversations across the apps. And if I feel like something really stood out that could be said in 60 seconds, that'll be the TikTok. Cool. Or you could take the TikTok and credit me and duet me. And you could duet, send me a duet request to reply to what you think. How about that? And what's your rebuttal to yelling is toxic? Yelling in response is toxic. Okay. All right. But yeah, let's find. If you say, "Well, I always yell, D. That's just how I am. I'm gonna curse people out. I'm gonna call them names if they disrespect me. That's just how I am." 2021 has no room for that. You need to find something that you can tap into that will give you everything that you need to learn how to do things differently if you're working in an environment that says there's no place for that, right? So if you have a work situation and you're always the one yelling at the board meetings and there's no place for that, you need to consider doing it a different way. That's just how I am doesn't work. Do we want racists to continue to say that's just how I am? I just come at black people. No, no, we want them to change. So be the change that you want to see, right? So you may have to find a new way to do it. That's what 2021 is called. That's what the pandemic is pulling out of people. That you're gonna have to find a new way of being, and that's okay. And you're gonna be okay. So yelling is toxic, period. Oh, I said that I would say in response to police officers. So the presence of may upset you. You may not want to see an officer involved, but someone may have called the officer because you're yelling, screaming, throwing things, hitting, being destructive, being, terrifying to the person who felt the need to call 911, whether justified or not. So the responsibility of a citizen, and I can't even get this blush off my face, sorry. The responsibility of a citizen in the United States, you will be better off being heard in court, right? So one place you are not going to yell is a court. So I need you to treat the scene with the officer the same way, okay? You cannot yell at an officer. You cannot yell at a judge. You cannot yell in a judge courtroom. So treat the officer the same way that you would behave as if you were in court. Yelling at the scene of a tense situation does not make things better. It makes it go by the majority. It tends, unless it's a really patient officer, it makes it go to the left negatively. So keep your tone with one of respect, whether they are wrong or right. That's a really difficult one. But I'm going to fix you in that courthouse if you're disrespecting me on the scene. So if I'm getting disrespect for you, I'm not going to have a yelling match back and forth with you. I am going to let the situation be heard, my voice be heard in the courtroom. Because at the time, at the scene that the officer is there with civilians, the officer holds the authority. So you need to keep the tone down and in hopes of the situation not elevating to something negative very quickly. So comply is not to submit to the system. To keep the tone in respect and not yell says, I respect that the person right now in front of me is in charge. Officer so and so. I appreciate that, officer. No, here's what happened, officer. Okay, now my turn to talk. Okay. All right, can I speak now, officer? Keeping that dialogue and then calling your attorney if it turns out, that you get arrested, or if it turns out, something negative happened, or you have a civil lawsuit possibly, or whatever. That's when you then have the conversation and let your attorney yell for you, boo. Like, learn how to move like, like a boss. But let your attorney go into court and move like an attorney moves, okay? And resolve the situation there, because the scenes get chaotic extremely quickly when everyone is trying to yell. And I understand sometimes officers get called on the scene. There's some serious arguments going on, right? And sometimes the officers show up and they don't have the skills needed to diffuse the scene, right? And so a lot of things can happen, but these are tools that I'm trying to give you prior to being caught up in a situation like that, because we never know the day or the hour that anything like that's going to happen. Those things are unpredictable. So those are just tools to just try. Just try. That's all I can tell you is to just try. But yelling in response solves less. Meeting the room with respect and tone will get a lot of things done. Not the physical room, just meeting the environment with respect in your tone, yet demanding, I'm going to be heard, but do that demand in a respectful way. Can do it. That's what I'm your relationship coach for. DM you, girl. If you're having issues with someone yelling in the home, if you are a yeller yourself and you want to go about trying to resolve being that way, you want to do a couple of sessions. I'm going to meet you at your budget. Let's make it affordable as can be. I have my set prices, but I definitely don't want you to stay away if you know that you could use my services, but at the same time, your pocketbooks are in a pandemic type of way. I totally can relate to that, and we definitely can work with that. But let's do the work. Let's be great in 2021. That's it, lovers. On to the next step.